and welcome to Business Talk, brought to you by the Sharonville Chamber of Commerce. I'm Britt Scarce with Emory Federal Credit Union. I'm your host, and today here in studio we have Karl Ulrich with Sebaly, Shillito, and Dyer, and Pandy Pridemore from The Human Resource USA, here to talk to us about medical marijuana in the workplace. Pandy, Karl, this could be a hot topic.
It certainly will be.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, there's been some law changes, right, here in Ohio?
Yes,
And medical marijuana is now going to be available.
that's correct.
So am I going to be able to get a prescription for marijuana from my doctor and be okay at work?
Isn't it wonderful how he starts out with the perfect question?
It's the perfect question. The answer is it's not a prescription. It's
Okay.
a physician recommendation.
Okay.
And yes, you'll have the if you have a particular condition which is listed in the statute, you'll have the ability to potentially go to a physician. A physician can recommend medical marijuana for treatment of one or more of those conditions, and it is what will happen is that you will then obtain a license.
The physician will.
Well, no, the physician will also obtain a license.
Okay.
In order to be able to recommend medical marijuana, the physician has to be certified under special requirements contained in the statute. But the user, the person who is seeking the recommendation from the physician, has to obtain a license, and that
Okay.
will then enable them to possess and use medical marijuana for those purposes.
Now, how will they do that? Do they have to go to, obviously, their physician and get some sort of, prove that they have that particular condition, I guess? They're going to verify that in order to give them that license?
Right. Well, I mean, the physician will do will generally have to diagnose a particular
Okay.
condition, and under those circumstances, the physician will be allowed to recommend the treatment with medical marijuana in certain circumstances.
Now, Pandy, what's the best, is
Notice
this
how
going
quiet I've been.
Yeah, I know.
Notice how I'm just sitting
what are
here.
what are our best practices going to be with employers? Are they going to need to change their drug testing policies?
Well, that's one of the reasons why Karl and I felt it was very important to have this conversation now, because there's so many misconceptions and so many misunderstandings about how this is actually going to take place. What you and Karl just had a conversation about was the individual getting it and how easy it's going to be for them and all the things they have to do. But what about the employers need to stop right now and think about whether they can even accept someone who's on a recommendation, and as in consideration of what role those individuals are going to be fulfilling within the company.
Yeah.
A lot of my clients, there's just no possible way, even for safety reasons, why individuals should be permitted to be on medical marijuana.
Yeah,
So,
if I'm operating heavy machinery or driving trucks, company vehicles.
it goes beyond that. If they have to climb a ladder.
Okay.
If they're around cooking or serious situations where they need to be alert, they need to have their full vision, they need to be able to be stable at all times. These are safety issues.
Right.
So Karl and I both agree. Employers need to stop right now and take a really hard look at all the positions within their company and determine, based on the essential work functions of that job, can they allow anyone coming into that role to be on medical marijuana?
Now, let's talk a little bit about the type of marijuana that has been approved for usage, right? So are they going to be able to smoke, marijuana, or is this going to be only in certain forms that it's going to be available?
Only in certain forms. Okay. So the statute's very clear that only in certain forms will it be allowed. Smoking, any combustible form is not allowed. So
Okay.
you can't smoke a joint. That's
Okay.
not going to be. It's not going to be available in that form. It's not going to be legal in that form.
Okay.
By the way, it's still illegal under federal law, which is another issue we can talk about. But so in vapor format, for example, in pill format, in oil format, those are all legal forms. There's also a section of the law that says that it can't be in a form which might be attractive to children. So, for example, the marijuana brownies. You can't make it in a
Gummy
form.
bears and
Right. You can't make it in a form that children might be attracted to. So there's certain restrictions on how it can actually be dispensed and used.
Well, and let's talk about the effects on the body. This is a little bit different than what most people think. We were laughing and giggling about chips, but THC affects the body differently. So when I talk about vision and memory loss or impairment, that's what truly is going to happen to an individual who's on it for a prolonged period of time. Because what's the duration in the body? 8 to 10 days?
It can actually be in your system for several weeks after ingestion. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the challenges, I think. You know, there's a difference between impairment and substance in the bloodstream. So the THC may still be in your bloodstream weeks after you're actually no longer, you know, visibly impaired, and that's the challenge with marijuana products in general. One of the reasons the law is written the way it is to allow employers maximum flexibility. It gives the employer an ability to not hire someone who has a medical marijuana license. It protects an employer from discharging someone who obtains a medical marijuana license, whether or not they're impaired. It allows an employer to have absolute discretion. Now, that doesn't mean an employer should necessarily take all that discretion. Depends to some extent on circumstances, I suppose, as to what their best practice should be. But the law gives employers a lot of discretion, a lot of flexibility in how to deal with the situation in the workplace.
Well, and that's another best practice that we should talk about is employers need to take into consideration everything within that decision, not only the functions of that role, but what other agencies or organizations or guidance are they under? Are they a federal contractor? Is DOT involved in their employment in any way possible? What about their insurance company? I mean, here in the state of Ohio, BWC is our workers' comp provider, but in other states, it's an outside insurance agent.
Yeah.
So how are they going to react to?
Yeah, is it going to affect workers' comp? I mean,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The state of Ohio has taken a very firm stand on it.
Right. The Bureau of Workers' Compensation has taken the position that if somebody tests positive for for marijuana as a result of taking it legally under the medical marijuana rules, it's a post-accident test, that will be even in those situations will be sufficient to deny them benefits.
Okay.
Now there's a so-called rebuttable presumption under Ohio law that says that the employee can then come forward with evidence suggesting that the accident was caused by something other than the substance. And that will restore benefits. But that process of shifting the burden over onto the employee makes it very, very difficult for an employee to be awarded benefits in a situation where they've been involved in an accident and they have medical marijuana in their system.
And costly.
And costly, exactly.
And workers' comp's not going to approve MM for ailments.
Yeah.
So they're not going to, if somebody gets hurt on a workers' comp claim, a work-related injury,
That's a good point.
they're not going to say, oh, well, let's put them on medical marijuana.
Right.
Not going to happen.
Right.
So is this going to be something where employers will need to change their drug testing policies to maybe allow this if it's perhaps not something where, I mean, if they take medical marijuana, are they necessarily going to be impaired? I mean,
Well, that's why we were talking about
Right,
the impairment's much different.
Yeah.
You're not going to, suspicion.
so would it cause an accident like that?
Oh,
I mean,
You
it
know?
could. It could.
absolutely could.
The rule in the statute, again, is uncharacteristically clear. It says that employers may adopt and may continue to enforce a zero-tolerance drug policy.
Okay.
And that can apply with equal force to somebody who is legally using marijuana with a medical marijuana license. So in other words, somebody comes into the workplace with a medical marijuana license, they test positive, they can apply that zero-tolerance policy to that individual and discharge them,
So-
just as they did. That doesn't mean they have to. It
Yeah.
just means that they may
They
do
could.
so. Yeah.
And if they if an employee gets fired for that reason, could that also affect their ability to collect unemployment?
Absolutely. In fact, the rule again is that in cases of usage, in many cases, that will be if you are discharged for violation of a zero tolerance policy, and it's because you have a medical marijuana license and you tested positive for a marijuana in your system as a result of that, that will be a defense, that will be a barrier to obtaining unemployment compensation benefits. So again, you can see the statute is written in a very pro-employer fashion and provides employers with a lot of flexibility in how to deal with these situations.
So Pandy, what should employers be kind of doing right now? You said they should take a look at their policies.
Well, you know, it's
right away?
amazing how many employers don't have a drug policy. They might have listed in their work rules or their conduct rules no possession or use of, but do they really have a drug policy? And personally, I don't know about you, Karl, but I like there to be an extra policy outside of the handbook, focused just on the drug use and alcohol use, because we got to look at alcohol as well.
Yeah.
It's a no tolerance, so get that firm in place, and then take a real hard look at what roles you have in your company, and then have an additional line in there for now. I mean, you don't want to go into this blind. Don't wait till something happens.
You're calling this It's like M&M's. You're making it sound like
M squared. M squared.
something totally different.
You were talking acronyms earlier.
I know.
It stuck in my head.
Yeah.
We're laughing over medical marijuana.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but this could definitely make things interesting, and not to get too far into the weeds on this, but could this evolve? I mean, no pun intended.
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how the law is actually applied over time. I mean, anytime there's a new law, anytime there's a new system in place that we haven't seen before, and this is one example of that, it takes some time, I think, for in this case, employers and employees to adjust to the new reality. And so what you're going to see, I think, over the next few years is you're going to see the law being applied in circumstances and situations which maybe weren't originally anticipated when the law was passed, in ways that perhaps we didn't have enough imagination to foresee. And that's when things get interesting, because that's when
consequences.
Right, and that's when the courts will have to look at it and do what courts do, really, and try to apply the law in that fashion. But the good thing about this law from a legal standpoint is that there's some aspects to it that have been fairly clear. In other words, they I think went to school on some of the experiences in other states with medical marijuana and recreational marijuana in particular. And they drafted a statute around some of those experiences, some of those challenges, and they made it. They made things explicit in areas where, in other states, I think they were less than explicit or less than clear. But again, that in and of itself doesn't guarantee that all the issues will be addressed. So, as I say, we will have to see how things unfold. But I take Pandy's advice seriously. I think all employers should take a look at their policies, should consider how they will deal with somebody with a medical marijuana license and/or somebody who tests positive because of a medical marijuana license, and try to figure out how they're going to grapple with that situation before they're actually faced with it.
Yeah, makes sense. Parting thoughts, Pandy?
Well, I just again, I think I love the way you started the show. Can I get a prescription? Because that's just where this whole movement has gone, is based on perception. And the more employers can get in terms of facts and listen and start watching those emails from BWC coming through. And as I mentioned, if you have employees in other states, find out what the insurance, your workers' comp insurance policies there are stating about the use of marijuana in those states, because employers just kind of tend to push things off until it's not a problem until it is a problem. We've all talked about that.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, so this has already been put into law. So is there going to be an effective date or month that this is for sure it's happening and we're going to start dealing with this?
It was passed in 2016. It's the full rollout. It's supposed to be fully implemented the first week of September of 2018. So it's coming. We're coming up on it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're already seeing folks lining up to become dispensaries, to become growers. The whole system takes a while because it's very regulated. It's analogous, I think, to some extent to the way the alcohol licenses have been doled out over the years. I think to some extent it's patterned a little bit after that system in Ohio. So it takes a little while for that to get all set up. But as of September of this year, we're going to see a fully rolled out program, and all the regulations are in place, and we'll see what happens.
All right. So employers, definitely, this is something that they definitely need to start thinking about now, because, like you said, it's a month away.
Yeah.
Not even a month. We're midway through August, right?
Right.
So great information. Karl, Pandy, thank you so much. employers, this is something that you definitely need to be checking out. We're going to be dealing with this in the coming months and the coming years. So great information. Karl Ulrich, Sebaly, Shillito, and Dyer, and Pandy Pridemore with the Human Resource USA. You've been watching Business Talk, brought to you by the Sharonville Chamber of Commerce. I'm Britt Scarce with Emory Federal Credit Union. And until next time, we'll see you right here on Business Talk.